Welcome back to the BVTV channel, and today we have another Dead by Daylight lore video going your guys' way. And it's just like last week how we did the twins, we will be doing Elodie Rokoto. So with that being said, let's get straight into her story, shall we? Born into a lush Parisian household, Elodie Rokoto grew up in a comfortable home miles away from the verdant island of Madagascar, her parents' birthplace. Her backpack was always heavy and usually contained no schoolwork. She carried the essentials, a few history books, some printed maps, and a compact shovel. Instead of wasting away with regurgitated facts from her classes, she explored the city to discover the stories behind each statue, neighborhood, and street sign. She collected bits and pieces of Paris, making it her own. When she was 14, her parents took her to Dyer Island for a business trip. To her grand disappointment, the island was a private site for exclusive members of the Imparati. She was forced to attend pretentious and awkward social mixers daily. After a few weeks on the island, she met the Paras, the like-minded teenagers who had no interest in being pawns for their parents' political chessboard. On dull rainy nights, she would convince them to sneak out and explore the island unsupervised. So already I think we can tell where this issue is going. I actually kind of find her backstory kind of cool, and I do get it. You know, as a kid, when you are exploring, especially as a teenager, when you don't want to go somewhere with your parents, I mean, who truly ever wants to go somewhere with their parents, truthfully? And when I was a teenager, I was like, nope, don't want to go with you, leave me alone. So the fact she has to go to this island and not be happy, poor Elodie, honestly, poor Elodie. Now, the part I don't agree with is the fact that she's kind of, you know, having these kids go out with her unsupervised. Like, if you know you're not supposed to do it, don't do it, kids, because a lot of bad things can happen. So just don't do it, especially if you know you shouldn't be doing it. Wait till there's daylight, or wait till there's someone that can at least semi-see you. All right? All right. One foggy evening, they stumbled upon an abandoned internment camp. Felix, one of the Paras, didn't want to go in, but Elodie insisted. Instead, they found a strange underground laboratory, so I'll call it now laboratory. Yep, in ruins. The Para grew excited, browsing through the strange apparatuses for trophies and mementos. But Elodie noticed Elodie noticed something in the far left corner of the wall, odd scratches in the shape of a circle. She ran her fingernails against the cool concrete. The marks were deep and narrow. A warm whisper suddenly sent her mind adrift. Deep rumbling thunder, black glistened waves, and ashen sanded beach, incomplete. She was compelled to touch the ice-cold sand and draw a circle with a line in the middle. A sharp thunderclap and lightning whipped the sky. The ground shook. A sleek obsidian claws tore through the concrete floor. Ripping the earth open, the building began to collapse, and Elodie spotted her mother wielding a bizarre instrument while her father told her to run. Then, whoosh. Complete darkness. Elodie never saw her parents again. And as I was saying before, this is why you don't do anything unsupervised, kids. Honestly, I've learned from experience, if it doesn't feel safe, or if it feels adventurous and it's late at night, please go home. Don't do it. Save yourself. Go home. This is a perfect example of why you don't sneak out at night. Anyway, let's go on back to the story, shall we? For years, this nightmare woke her in the middle of the night, cold, sweating, shaking like a leaf. As a child, she suffered from night terrors and often resisted going to bed. To soothe her mind, her grandma would light a tea candle and tell her stories until the wick extinguished in a hot pool of liquefied wax. The perfume of the warm vanilla-scented wax would lull Elodie to sleep as she envisioned stories of legendary heroes defeating fear and foes. Elodie had forgotten the stories, but she still remembered her longing for the verdant Malagasy rainforest and colossal mountains that her grandmother described. When Elodie felt cold and numb with grief, she would light a vanilla-scented candle and summon her childhood memories of the distant, idyllic place, raising her spirits to rise above her crippling depression. Whew. Wow, that one runs deep. Oh my goodness. You know, I am someone who suffers from depression, and it's really interesting because I can relate a lot to that. At least in the depression part, at times it is very hard to feel happy sometimes. And if you are out there and someone else can relate to that, I always want to try to tell people this: that, like, you're one of a kind. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You know, and just keep being headstrong. True, that's like the best thing I could kind of say to that. But now, as for Elodie, yeah, I really do feel for her. I mean, you talk about losing your family. being stuck with your grandma. I gotta say, how hard is it for the grandma too? Let's actually take a minute to understand the grandma's position here. The grandma is sitting there, her parents are dead, you have a kid who's just basically witnessed her parents, kerplunk, and you've got to be the head parent. Kind of unfair for the parent, for the grandma, but it is what it is. And I give grandma credit for trying to help her with night terrors and stuff. Like, I'm also sleep insomniac, so it's hard to fall asleep. So there's a lot of things here in this one paragraph I can really, really understand, all different sides. And it's kind of like, kind of sad, and you kind of really feel for Elodie as well, including the grandma, even though she's mentioned very briefly, 14 years later, Elodie still searched for the missing pieces of the puzzle. No rational explanation could explain her parents' disappearance, so she had been looking elsewhere. She researched any and all legends that mentioned a dark force that snatched people at night without a trace. From there, she translated old tales and built tapestry of narratives from around the world that collaborated the uncanny way her parents vanished on Dire Island. She also gathered artifacts made by ancient civilizations who sought to destroy or resurrect the incomprehensible and indescribable thing that took her parents. There were various names from it, differing from the language to the next: the abyss, the infinite, the whole. Her findings pushed her further into the dark field of occultism, I think, or occultism. I think it says occultism. There you go. The Paras were long gone. She'd alienated them from her theories, but she refused to give up on her parents. I mean, let's be real now. Give it up for Elodie. She's still trying to find, and I feel that's a lot of the stories with a lot of the survivors, that when they have missed something, they go finding it. They try to solve the mystery, and that's the same thing we can actually relate back to Felix too. So for him, it's kind of an interesting story when you think about it. There's two interesting little pieces that kind of go together. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll actually get a tie into that, because a similar thing happened to Felix's parents. Or was it Felix or was it him? I think it was him. I'm not sure. I actually have to look that up. But yeah, I'm kind of just overall surprised at just how saddening the story is for her. I mean, she's trying to find what happened to her parents. You got to give her credit, man. She's going through all this crazy. I hope occultism isn't actually a thing. I'm not quite sure. I hope it's not. But yeah, let's actually get back to the story, shall we? Elodie had to set out in the cold, misty evening. She turned a corner, leaving Paris's 13th arrondissement, an eccentric neighborhood with a substantial library dating from the Middle Ages. She had pressing work to do for Hazra Shah, the collector, an occult specialist who archived rare artifacts. He recruited her after she salvaged a rare, stolen Maori statue of spidery fangs, like the claws she'd seen on Dire Island. It's actually very interesting. Personally, if I'm Elodie, I don't think I actually really trust Hazra Shah, but that's just me anyway. Continuing on with the story. For the next 5 years, Elodie had been procuring occult relics for the collector. In exchange, he provided large sums of money, equipment, and precise information about obscure manuscripts. Just as the collector requested, she had secured the annals of a witch trial convicting a mother birthing conjoined twins in the 17th century. And that's where we get the tie-in with the twins, everybody. According to legend, an occult incantation was engraved on a set of skulls, all of which the collector possessed except one, the witch's skull. There were no traces of where the skull was now, but Elodie had found a newspaper article dating back to the same year, mentioning the most remains had been relocated to the catacombs to avoid a pandemic. Elodie was acting on a hunch. Breaking into the catacombs to retrieve a lost skull involved certain risks, but no more than the previous work she'd done for the collector. With a flashlight, she followed the ancient layout of the catacombs and spotted a collapsed wall. A few large stones blocked the way in. She grabbed her portable XRF analyzer and scanned the materials of the wall. Working for the collector had its perks. The brick mortar had been poorly mixed, showing high traces of sand. The whole thing was brittle, and the ground was moist from the damp evening air. This was her way in. So this is where I'm guessing we see that really dark turn, because she's breaking in doing something she really shouldn't, but then again, it's also that she has done stuff like this before. So I don't feel comfortable with the collector, and I don't know why. Something's not right here. The journey beneath was long and treacherous. The air was heavy and moldy. She gasped when her keychain flashlight hit an endless wall of bleached white skulls. Something cracked behind her. She spun and collided headfirst with a baseball bat. Ooh! Pain exploded in her head and the darkness filled her view. When she came to, a man was carrying her over his shoulder, adventuring deeper into the catacombs. He was wearing a dark robe, the Black Veil. She managed to elude them until now. Ruthless and lethal, they went by many names. She figured out that they ultimately all worked for the same group, a ring of occult fanatics rumored to perform human sacrifices for what they called the Old One. She had to get out of here fast. Elodie spotted a loose skull on the wall, grabbed it, and smashed it on her assaulter's head. Stunned, the man lost his balance and Elodie hit the ground running. As she turned a corner, she suddenly felt a sharp pain by her side. She looked down and saw a large planted blade there. A large blade planted there. There we go. Shocked, she removed the knife and warm blood spurted out. Her heartbeat rang in her ears. As her vision blurred, she fell to her knees. Summoning all her strength, she drew a circle on the ground with a shaking blood-red finger and traced a line in the middle. An opaque heaviness fell over her shoulders. A familiar scent of vanilla-spiked fruits and lychee nuts coated the air. Thin tropical rain drizzled down leafy vines. Warmth. Madagascar. A ghostly cry erupted from the thick foliage. Elodie looked up and the vines turned into hissing snakes. The soft canopy soil suddenly turned ashen and collapsed under her feet. She sank into something dense and cold that swallowed her like quicksand. She screamed before being smothered by the abyss, the infinite, the whole. She found what she had been looking for. Kind of a very dark way to actually end that whole story for her. But no, truthfully, this story reminds me of a lot of just determination, you know? Ultimately, I see Elodie Rokoto and I think of someone who is just trying to find out what happened to her parents. That one fateful night she made that mistake. That one bad decision, that one bad judgment that she had to live with the rest of her life. A determined person who wanted to find out why, how, and just when, in any type of capacity, could this actually happen. Did her eyes deceive her? It's a sad story. Personally, not as sad as the twins. I think the twins have the award for the saddest story ever in Dead by Daylight history. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on Elodie Rokoto? How do you feel about it? How do you feel for her grandma, for everything that she had to go through? And also, with that being said, everybody, please do leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to BVTV. We'll see you next time, everybody. Stay off the hook.